The Cavs are playing excellent basketball right now, and that deserves to be stated, but it also deserves to be stated what they are overcoming. When Evan Mobley and Darius Garland, when we got that double drop of news that both of those guys would be out, Evan at least 6 weeks, and then Darius at least a month, and then he's going to get reevaluated after that. It was devastating. Right? Like that, those are your two best young players. We talk about this Cavs team all the time. You're building around that young core of Evan Mobley and Darius Garland. While it was a relief that they weren't season-ending injuries, it's still a big blow to this team. And it was a real question when an injury like this happens this early in the season. Was this something that this team can overcome? Was this something that would derail the season so much that the best you can hope for is maybe a play-in appearance because the record would just go out of whack with those guys out? And not only were those guys out, the first game that they played with those guys out, Donovan Mitchell hurts his elbow and goes out for even more time. And he had been in and out the lineup all year. And you wouldn't be crazy for thinking that that might have been a wrap for the Cavs at that point, right? Because for a lot of teams, that's a death sentence. Like, not only is your best two young players out, you also lose your best player. But through the efforts of some random performances, some Craig Porter Jr.'s, some Sam Merrills, some random dudes on the roster that have really stepped up. And now the Cavs are sitting second in their division. They just beat the division leader, the Milwaukee Bucks. And they're fourth in the East, virtually where you kind of expected them to be, fully healthy. Now, just because they're having this success while they're not healthy does not guarantee that after the All-Star break, when they start to get healthy again, that it guarantees them any success. But what this does say is that this team at its core is good. There were some questions about JB Bickerstaff earlier in the year, questions about his ability to coach this team. We all know that JB's not the most exotic X's and O's guy. He's not going to be the most killing in that way. But what he is somebody who can get the group together and get them to come together and play well together. And that's precisely what JB has done very well, right? He's gotten these guys to come together, play well, and then you're getting some good but random performances throughout this. And this was the king of random performances in this game, because not only did you get, well, it's not a random performance from Jarrett Allen to give you 21, because he's been excellent down the stretch, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But you also got 31 from Donovan Mitchell. And 33, the leading scorer of today's game. I don't know if you guessed this one. If you put this one on DraftKings, you probably would have won yourself a good amount of money. Georges Niang, 33 points, 5 of 6 from 3, 13 of 14 from the field. He took 14 shots today. I'm sorry. 14 shots. He made more shots today in 27 minutes and played more minutes than Donovan Mitchell. He made more shots from the field and he made more three-pointers than Donovan Mitchell today. The man with 33 and 5 and 2. It's nuts. That's nuts. Max Strus, he's been having some up and down performances. He's had a bit of a cold streak recently. 6 points. He's still kind of in that slump. Look, shooters are going to slump during the season. Maybe it's because I grew up playing baseball that I don't tend to overreact when negative parts of trends are happening. Like when a player's hot in like any sport, I'm always understanding that eventually they're going to come back down to their bubblegum card. So whatever they average. So when somebody's shooting hot, I'm like, okay, they're eventually going to bounce back up. They're going to have a stretch where they're making a ton of threes, and it's going to bounce back to average. Like, playing a lot of baseball when you're young makes you truly believe in the power of averages because you see it, because you play it so much. Like, you play so many games that you'll stink for like 8 of them in a row, and then like for 8 games in a row, you're awesome. And it's like, oh, it got back to normal, right? So I'm not one to really freak out when a player is playing super well. I'm like, okay, we know where their baseline is. Like, unless they're resetting a baseline for a whole season, I'm not going to really freak out. And also, when the player's playing bad, I'm not one to freak out. His baseline is going to probably be what it's always been, right? Max Strus is a pretty proven player in the NBA, so he's probably going to come back. And he was shooting well early in the season, so he'll bounce back. And honestly, he's still giving you quality minutes out there, right? Like, he's still a good defender, even if he's not making his shots at a super high level. Does a great job facilitating the ball, making sure that those hockey passes get completed. Like, all those things, Max Strus, I think he does a really solid job at. Jarrett Allen is another one that we need to talk about. Now, I know I've been super busy with the Browns playoff run that I haven't been able to make as many videos about the Cleveland Cavaliers as I would like to. But let's talk about Jarrett Allen, man. Jarrett Allen, and look, I'm not going to act like I wasn't a part of this. I was a part of this. Most of y'all watching this video was a part of this. We all focused our anger at that loss to the New York Knicks, and we put the majority of it on Jarrett Allen. Why did we put it on Jarrett Allen? 1, because Mitchell Robinson went nuts at his expense. 2, because he seemed helpless versus Mitchell Robinson. And 3, because, well, I guess we wasn't really feeling being mad at Donovan Mitchell, who also kind of disappeared in that series as well. There was other people who were mad at like JB and everything else, but like, universally, people were mad at other people in other parts, and people would disagree about which parts were more critical to that loss than that. Was it JB? Was it this and that? Like, people had these debates about everybody else, but universally, everybody was like, hey, man, we need to trade Jarrett Allen after that series. And I can understand why somebody felt that way, because part of me felt that way, right? I was like, man, he's not that big. Whenever we run into these big players, he's always an issue. And while I was on that train, I never lost sight of the fact that he was still going to help you in the regular season. And this is one of those ones where it's like, hey, you could have made a trade and that might have made you better in a playoff series, but it's probably good that you waited at least to the trade deadline to even think about doing anything like that, because you really needed him in this stretch. Now, once DG comes back and Evan Mobley comes back, that becomes an interesting conversation. He's averaging a double-double right now. He's playing close to what he was when he made the playoff game in his last playoff appearance. So he's getting close to making another playoff appearance. And there is I hate to ask questions like this because it feels so cynical when a team's playing so well. But it's like, hey, if you do get to the trade deadline, do you think you have to move on from Jarrett Allen? Do you think you should trade him because like his value is going to be as high as it's ever been? And is that something that would yield some positive results, because you still need to get heavier at center? I think having Tristan Thompson there as a rotational piece has also been very important. I think Tristan, while he's not giving you the flashy minutes, he's still giving you some very good, tough, big man minutes. And that's the one thing I felt like the Cavs were missing last year, is that it's not that Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley are so light that you can't guard somebody like Mitchell Robinson. It's that you had no true bigs behind them that could step in if one of those guys were having serious issues with Mitchell Robinson, right? Like, you can live with, if you have Evan out there and Tristan's out there, you can figure out how to stop Mitchell Robinson. But when they're both out there and they both can't do nothing about it, that becomes a big problem. So maybe just having a piece like Tristan Thompson really helps you, because he's just a much bigger, more physical, true power forward in that sense, right? Like he's more willing to do the dirty work. He's more physical. He's willing to fight guys. Like all of that stuff that we kind of felt like the Cavs needed I'm gonna fight somebody guy. Like it sounds irrational, but during that playoff series, I think that's the one thing that bugged us. And I think Tristan is somebody who's gonna help you tremendously when it comes to that. Karras has been a good player for this team so far. I mean, this roster, it's good. And I think that they're playing super well, and I think it should be applauded what this Cavs team has done so far in beating the Milwaukee Bucks by 40 points on national TV, even if it's without Giannis. Beating them by 40 points should be applauded all the time. Every time. Was it 40 or 30? It was 40. It was 40. They beat them by 40. They beat them by 40 points. So shout out to the Cavs. Shout out to JB. Shout out to everybody on that roster for holding it together, because I think best case scenario, we felt like, hey, maybe the Cavs can come back off these injuries and still be in the play-in. And that way we don't have to dig ourselves out of a hole. A lot of us thought that they were probably going to be like well out of the play-in and have to play themselves back into the play-in. But right now the Cavs are sitting at the 4, and that's just beyond expectation. And they've done a great job with that. So that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.